anytime you're
That's
ready.
it. We're good.
Okay.
Yay.
Yes, we are. Yay.
All right, so I'm Hannah Morgan. I am called the Career Sherpa, and with me today I've got Mark Anthony Dyson, Voice of Job Seekers. So thank you, Mark, so much for being with me here today. We've had conversations in the past, and you're just one of my favorites because you're such a great advocate for job seekers. So we're going to be talking about how job search has changed and what to do about it. So there are new job search strategies that people need to be thinking about. And one of those big ones, and you and I are right on the same track on this, is that the resume is not the end all be all. There's a lot of other things that job seekers need to think about. So, woohoo!
Yeah.
So, Mark, let me just give you more. What did I not say about who you are? I mean, you are an avid blogger. You've got an amazing podcast, which is around you know, on all the top lists of people, job seeker lists for people to follow. You write resumes. What don't you do?
Well, I've actually stepped away from the resume writing a little bit.
Okay.
Being that the need is to educate a little bit more about the whole picture rather than just the resume. So I actually dissolved my resume company.
Okay, so scratch the resumes.
Yeah, though I do help my clients with resumes. I just don't do it from strictly a writer's perspective anymore because I'm actually migrating. I continue coaching, but what's interesting developments is people want to know more about building a social proof and social profiles. So spending a little bit more time doing that aspect of it. I think that is a little bit more creatively stimulating for me, as well as I think it benefits people a little bit more because honestly, let's face it, I've said this and I've gotten a lot of headache for it, but you know, people have gotten jobs with lousy resumes, let's face it. And I'm not saying anything against the great writers that are out there that you and I know, that you and I follow, that you and I talk to or friends with. But one of the realities is that the resume is the rudder of the ship. It's a very small part. The ship itself has to be steered by a whole lot of other factors. Large one is personal branding. That's a big one. And, you know, a lot of people are really struggling, some still with that aspect of it, still not willing to go the whole distance. They're willing to do the things that they're comfortable with, which is job boards, online activity, begging sometimes. But I think ultimately that, you know, there's a whole ship that needs to be managed. And so I'm spending more time doing that aspect of it than I am, and then more time that I really want to do writing resumes.
Gotcha. And it's a shift in priorities. And I think that one of the things that the whole conversation today is about is that shift in priorities, that, you know, having the slickest resume in the whole world is not going to get you the job of your dreams. That there's so much more that goes into this process of job search. So tell me, what do you think some of the biggest changes are? And I don't want to assume that anybody knows these, right? Because I think there are still people who don't know them. So what are some of the things that you think are big shifts in job search processes and how the jobs are getting found and landed?
Well, I think ultimately the goal is to go where you could be noticed. I think that's the big thing. And recruiters are looking some of everywhere. They're listening to the people that they're working for. And they're being told that generally there's a skills gap, and that's a big thing. I'm not saying that that's it entirely, but in a lot of employers that I've talked to, even a big one recently, just recently talked to Rich Thompson, who is the Chief Human Resource Officer for DECO, did a show this past week that I published in the podcast.
I saw that.
Yeah, and the skills gap is very real to big companies like that. So one of the things that to address is to, you know, find out what skills the employers want and need. And the best way you're going to be able to do that is to be in contact with people. If you don't contact
because
people,
job postings stink. Yeah. They don't write job postings well.
No, job postings really don't say a lot. They say what's in general. And sometimes it leads to the black hole trap that we've been talking about for many years. Unfortunately, that hasn't changed a whole lot. But to find out where people are and where they're scouting, that's where the trick is. Now, you and I have mobile phones. We use them for everything just about. And if anything, we go to family events and a bunch of us are no longer just watching what's on the TV. We're looking at our Facebook pages and we're looking at whatever is on our mobile phone. And sometimes if we don't like what we see with the family, we can watch whatever we want on our own. And really, mobile recruitment is a very, very big up and coming reality that if you're not going to be found mobily, if that's a word, then you're not going to.
We'll give it to you.
Yeah, thank you. Then it's going to be hard to stand out. Now they're looking at other places.
So wait, go any further. Let's talk. Are you going to dive in and tell us what it means?
I could dive in as much as we want.
Dive in.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell me what you mean by getting found mobily, because I don't think people get it.
I think one of the things that people are not realizing is that everything for people who are on the move, they're looking to do it mobily. They want to be able to go to a website. They want to be able to what they call source for candidates. They can do that with using mobile applications. And a lot of the job boards that they're subscribing to, like LinkedIn, which is now becoming more of a mobile job board than I think it is a social network, you want to be found there and you want to find how to interact with them, not just look for postings, but you want to find where you can build the better relationships. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. I shouldn't say a lot of ways, like there's a plethora of ways that you do it, but there's some main ways that you can put yourself in position to do so. And one of the best ways is to be able to consider yourself a content creator in the sense of not just providing social updates, but offering value to people that may look to you. Now, if you don't have people, what's that?
How?
Well, one thing you and I are real big on is websites for job seekers. I cannot tell you how useless a job search is and to build a brand if you don't have your own website that you control the content through. It doesn't even have to be that elaborate. It could be as much as you want it to be. However, if you want to have continued success for years to come, you better put some time into a mobile website. And I'm not just talking about just having a website. I'm talking about having a optimized mobile website. You go to my website, The Voice of Job Seekers, right now, voiceofjobseekers.com. One of the first things you'll see is the heading and all. You'll see a couple of players for the podcast. Now, the best way I know for a fact, if I just left it to iTunes and people go to iTunes, it wouldn't be a response that is quick or maybe not at all. But being that I have a player right there, you can go and listen to the podcast right there. And that's the way you kind of need to think, in this day and age. And overall, and we can dive in even a little bit more even, is that you got to think marketing and you got to think like a consultant. And you got to be willing to be disruptive. And I'm not just talking about making a lot of noise, but you've got to catch people off guard for them to remember you and to even come back to you.
Because it's noisy. There are too many people out there looking for work, and you've got to do something that is going to capture their attention.
Yeah, disruption is what it's all about, I think. Even if you don't go a mobile route, you got to think of some way to catch the attention of whoever it is. If you're going to just continue to rely on job boards, you're going to continue to even just email a person a resume, you're not going to get the attention because how many other people are doing that? You got to do some things that people are not willing to do and are not there yet. So even though there might be some competition, you've cut your competition down to 3 or 4 people. I guarantee you, if you have a website that can be found.
So, hey, Bob, hold on a second. We'll let you come in here in a second. We'll let you come in after a little bit. Bob's a friend of ours too. So
Yeah, Bob
hold the phone.
McIntosh.
Go away. We'll get you on.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know that mobile is one of the biggest changes, and job seekers need to embrace that for themselves and their own personal branding. They're already doing it personally. They need to do it professionally.
Right.
What's another big shift change that job seekers need to know about?
Well, I think that some of the tools that we see, like with Periscope, Blab, possibly Snapchat, that recruiters are actually beginning to look and take that very seriously. They're looking.
And why are they doing that? Why are they going to those places?
Well, that's a good question. Because you can really see who people are. You can see their personalities. You can have a face-off with them, possibly. And really, unless you add a voice, unless you add a voice to who you are, you really are just another piece of paper, or you're just another profile. So they're looking for, they're looking for the person. So it helps to add some personality. Where you're going to have personality, you're going to have some personality on Blab if you do a Blab, like we're doing now. You're going to have some personality doing the Periscope, especially when you're not getting a voice talking to you back, but you're just getting a lot of written interaction. Find out how those work. Those could be very useful tools for you. There's so many possibilities. I mean, this is not an original idea, actually. And Jessica Merrill Miller, and I know, I actually had her on the show back in the fall, and we talked about using Blab and Periscope as a way to even reach out to recruiters, have them on your show, have employers on your show, interview them, get to talk about what it takes to be a part of the company, find out about the company culture, and invite other people to watch. Just don't be somebody that's going to just give to. It may not be the fit for you. It could be a fit for somebody else. But those kind of things catch on, you get talked about, and no telling where that may lead. But ultimately, that does something really great for you, your personal brand, and your ability to network effectively.
Absolutely. And that's all very disruptive too. And it's video, it's video, we know. People are watching more video than they are watching anything else. It's just really popular. Yeah. It's easy to do. It doesn't cost anything. You and I can do this. We can be a host of our own show with audio, with video, without needing oodles of money, a studio, all of that stuff. So
it costs nothing. It costs time. It costs time. You already have a phone. The Blab app is very easy to navigate. You really don't even need a tutorial to figure out how to use it, but there are plenty of them out there that you can use. And a lot of them, my friend Eileen Smith has made a great little YouTube video. You can go to her channel. Ian Cleary is another one that's made a great tutorial. Probably his is even more in depth than Eileen's. So, there are things that you can figure out very easily. You just got to be willing to do it. And again, you're more effective being disruptive than you are just following trends. And that's going to make a difference in your job search.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're mobile. We're embracing some of the video alternatives. What else? Okay,
well, I think one of the things that we need to also change and shift the way we look at our job search. If you're just applying and sending resumes, it's not going to mean a whole lot to you. It's not going to leave an impression. And I've always said, and I've said this for a long time now, companies can't train personalities. They can't, if somebody has a nice personality, they might be able to enhance it, but they can't train great personalities. And the more you're able to show that, the more you're able to stand out. One of the things that job seekers should really think about is really taking a closer look at culture and doing a searching companies by culture. Now, you've heard the adage of in recent years that coaches of all types, and including myself, not being the originator of any of this, but target companies. And targeting companies is just one way. Some people will say, well, how do I do that? Well, I don't know if anybody's ever tried to pick up the phone and call the 800 number of the company, but you can actually call and talk to a live person. Now, sometimes you can even expand that situation if you add a little personality, if you know where I'm going with this. Sometimes you can even find out some insight. You can start building relationships there. But a lot of times you could find out what the brand of the company is and how it's housed by calling the 800 number or the 877 number or the 866 number, whatever that is, call it. Or if they invite people to Skype, try to get on and try to Skype with someone. I mean, these tools, I mean, again, using the word disruption, we're not just saying this is a key word for you to use to carry on. This is how you got to think, in the sense of, I've got to be different. I've got to stand out in some kind of way. And by being yourself, you can make a big difference in the way that you contact other people and network and even hiring managers.
Have you heard job seekers tell you, because I know I've heard this, you know what, Hannah, this is not fair. Back in the olden days, all I had to do was submit my resume and I'd get an interview. I don't want to have to go through all these hoops.
Well, the way that jobs are being facilitated has changed quite a bit. I mean, there's not the, you can't stand in line to apply anymore. You can't.
Oh, you could go to a career fair, though. They hand out jobs at career fairs, don't they?
No. They absolutely don't.
So why do we still have career fairs in 2016?
The career fair in 2016 is a net being thrown out to 1,000 fish to see what they can catch. It's not so much to be able to, now there's ways you can stand out to a career fair if you call the 800 number before, a day or two before. And if you try to find out information, you might be able to get in contact with the human resource office, find out who's going there. And you might be able to send them an email and say, hey, I heard that you're going to be at the career fair. Just don't pass on a resume at first. I would even be cautious in that. Say, I look forward to our conversation. And I see that you are, and if you look on LinkedIn and use LinkedIn, probably Bob, that's probably what he wants to talk about while you use LinkedIn.
That's his niche.
Yeah, we got you, Bob. But use LinkedIn and find out about what makes the contact person tick, whoever's going to be at the fair. It's not a bad thing to use career fairs as a way to have a face-to-face with someone. The more of them you have, but that's a way to stand out, because believe me, I guarantee you, there might be one other person out of a couple of thousand that might have thought about it that way.
Right. So it's very easy to stand out if you're doing it, if you're disruptive,
absolutely.
If you're being proactive, if you're thinking about it different.
Absolutely. And it could be a little hard. And this is another part of the job search we don't talk about as enough as coaches and those of us who facilitate job workshops and things, is that it takes a lot of courage to do a lot of these things. Mm-hmm. It takes some patience. It takes perseverance. It takes resilience, because you're going to get rejected, and some of these are a little risk. But at the same time, if you do it right and you make a practice of it, you can make it into an art form that you own and that you can help yourself to be known. If anything, for them to know your name and what you're looking for. And that's part of a lot of the name of the game.
Yeah, it really is. It's got to be proactive. It's got to be something that you're hungry for. If you're not hungry for it, I'm going to go find somebody who is hungry for it.
Yeah, I think, though, as we move along in this particular era of the information highway, I think more people will get a little bit smarter in knowing that as soon as they start the new job, they start the next job search. And that the next job search is going to include me regularly, even maybe interviewing every quarter. or at least meeting with somebody every quarter that may be able to give them information on what they need to equip themselves for the next job. And hopefully that more people will want to have more of a continuous string of jobs instead of just gearing up for this race. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint anymore.
Right.
It used to be a sprint a few years ago where, as soon as you got laid off, you got fired, or you leave your job, you crank up Career Builder and you crank up Hot Jobs or Monster, and then you go after it. And it's not that kind of race anymore. Yeah, you actually end up losing a lot more than winning.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Talk about LinkedIn, because a lot of this stuff, LinkedIn is a platform we don't own. Somebody else owns it and manages it, but we can leverage that a little bit to our advantage, given some of the things that you're talking about. Talk about some strategies.
Okay. LinkedIn these days is better as, I guess, what it used to meant to be, as a networking, as a social networking. It's not a hub. I think the way we think about LinkedIn is good to have a hub, but I think that's only a small fraction of really how to use it. I think we could put part of our resume and cut and paste and most people, I think they're beginning to get the idea that doesn't work as well. It's not very effective. But if you're joining groups and you're trying to foster conversations, that's going to be a much more effective way to use it. And I think too is that the updates that you see that comes through your news feed on LinkedIn, those could be very effective as far as being social. I mean, really, you don't have to invest a lot of time in it, but if you're commenting, or even if it might be a comment that won't go over real well, then you're starting to foster some really great discussion. And don't be afraid to say something wrong, because sometimes, that's how we learn, especially in the groups where your niche is. And I think that's where the magic is really happening. If you find the niche that you're in, and of course, the smaller the better. And that's another way to be disruptive, in the sense that you're able to lend your comments and have a say so on the direction of the conversation. You can really be effective in the way that it could turn for you, because people actually, whether they agree or don't agree, sometimes they'll want to just connect with you just because you were bold enough to say something.
Absolutely. I know. Listen, I think there's still people out there that don't know what good groups look like, or how to find groups on LinkedIn that are relevant to what their occupation or their career or their interests are. Do you have any tricks or hacks for finding good groups for somebody specific?
Right. Well, I think some groups you can voyeur and look at to kind of check out to see what kind of conversations that are going on there. Sometimes it depends on who you know. Find out who's in those groups that are part of your contacts and join those groups first. And likely they're going to be the ones who will interact with you quite a bit, more than the people who don't know. And as they get to know you, become more familiar with you, you can be a part of them. I think the problem in some of the challenges now is that LinkedIn's groups have depreciated in value, in the sense that the action is not as vibrant and robust, and the discussions aren't as robust as they used to. Plus, I think they changed it to where, and you can correct me, where the conversations aren't going through the regular feeds or going through everybody's feeds. So it's hard to discover them.
Right. There's this privacy lockdown thing where groups are hidden and they're locked behind the wall of security. And so, yeah, a lot of what used to be seen, and I don't know it as intimately as other experts do, but I know that it is harder to publicize what you're doing in groups,
right?
Which may be a second.
Right. Yeah. So if, let's say you don't have a LinkedIn profile already, and you need some help in filling it out, I'll be glad to send you, if you want, just contact me through Twitter. I could send you a free short guide on at least getting started and filling out your profile if you want to get started. And even it'll show how to even initiate some of the groups. The only thing is that it needs to be updated still. From I think it was early 2015 when it was last updated, and I'm trying to add some articles to it, some that I've written. But I think ultimately that people can really find a lot of value in the smaller niche groups and being able to use that to join the conversations, and sometimes even find out job leads and job information. So I think it's still good. Yeah.
What about creating content on the LinkedIn blogging platform? What are your feelings on that?
Yeah, I can go on for that, but I highly recommend you creating content to be seen. It is it's a fire starter sometimes. I know that our friend Bob McIntosh has done really great content on LinkedIn about LinkedIn. He's someone to also follow, so yeah, we're giving him a shout out. But yeah, you and I have done some articles on there as well, and really it is something you can share and can be seen through any social network. So let's say you write an article on LinkedIn. It's not just for LinkedIn. You can go to Twitter and broadcast it out. You can go to Facebook and go to any of these social networks and let people know you've written an article. And it really doesn't matter. I mean, 10 people might see it the first time or even the first day. Don't get discouraged. Don't look at it from the sense of how many people look at it, because I know a couple of people who actually made some really great contacts just even by commenting on an article that was on LinkedIn. I actually met someone that was really cool in LinkedIn just by a comment I put on a particular article, and I didn't even write the article. So I think taking advantage of that platform might even be a good way to springboard your way to building your own website, which again, that is the number one way to build your personal brand. And I know if you go through Hannah's site, I read article after article. In fact, I think you even tweeted out a YouTube interview with someone that even talked about how the resume is shrinking and how
Dory Clark. I love Dory Clark.
Yes,
Reinventing you.
Yes, and she just said it outright that the resume is just about dead. I'm not going to put it on life support just yet. Because I think they're
and this is what she says, and this is really what she means. It's meant to be that oh my gosh, what do I do now?
Right.
She means and you know what she means is that Google is becoming a very important spot in results. The results in Google, people are Googling you.
Yeah.
And so if you can't be found on Google for the right stuff, you're done.
Right. And I think let's turn back a little bit and saying that really to employers, and they're starting to spend a little bit more time. At first, we said that years ago that, they're looking on the back end, is that if you think we're ready, then we look at Google. They're taking the front end look. That's going to be the first draft of your resume, really, is the web. Is the first thing they see. If they don't see anything, then you really didn't hand in a resume. You're really not working on your resume. You may be working on a marketing document, but really the first thing they're going to be interested in is they're going to be interested in how much can I find out about this particular person. And you may look interesting at first, which may stimulate a little interest, but you've got to build a body of work over a period of time, or at least a body of work in the form of activity that kind of shows what you're about and what your brand is about as a professional. Because if it's not found there, it's not going to thrive.
And it goes back to your whole analogy of this being a marathon. This is not a sprint. It's something that each one of us now is responsible for managing is, okay, how are we making sure that we're putting out the right messages about us? But it doesn't always have to be about us. I don't have to post hey, I'm a great person kind of blog post. I'm just going to share with you my thoughts, my interests, my what's going on, how I feel about my industry, what's going on in my industry. Anybody can do that. And as long as it's accurate, it's well written, and it's a good reflection on you.
Absolutely.
It's a long term.
Absolutely.
But I think I'm sorry to interrupt. Help anyone who's listening, because I think I've written a couple of posts about this. And I think it's hard for people to know what are they going to write about. If they decide they want to develop their own content, they're going to write something on their LinkedIn profile. What are some of the things that usually make good articles for people to write about that are in job seeker mode?
That's a great question. And I've spent a lot of time looking through a couple of job seekers who use their websites as a way to build their personal brand. One approach I know from a personal friend, his name is Keith. Keith had graduated from DePaul University several years ago, and he got his master's in computer, some kind of technology, some kind of funky name. But he wasn't sure exactly how it was going to venture, but he just knew that if he put himself out there, that something will happen. Even if it doesn't, it will build something to his personal brand. So he started writing articles for his own, and some people found them, and even some people started to ask him on podcasts. They started to ask him to write for industry, technology sites, and some fairly large ones. And he's in a very small niche. I'm talking about like VMware and some of these names that you and I will probably never know what the true force of it is. But ultimately, now he's speaking in Australia. He's doing interviews in London. And he has a podcast of his own, not only in audio form, but it's in video form. And he's really built a true career around his website. And it started with his website, not just the education, because the education wasn't enough. And he even asked himself, and he wondered, did I go to school in vain, and would I have gotten this far? But what the value he got out of it is that he was able to learn how to write and put things in perspective, if anything, as far as the value out of his schooling. But it's become a really great way for him to get a following and to get interest in his brand. In fact, he even quit his job based on a situation at his job where he didn't get a fair review. So he took it to social media. And along with social media, people were sending him contacts. They were reaching out to him. Even 6 weeks before he quit, he was having interviews. So, which eventually 4 months later, he landed at a really well-paying job. And he left a big four company. So all of that to say is that, don't think for a second, these things work. These strategies actually work. If you have the patience, if you have the courage, if you have the perseverance, if you're resilient enough, those things you already have. You're equipped with those already, so you don't have to go look for those anywhere. If you have those things, you can use those same type of strategies. Now, there's another way, and I know I'm being a little long-winded, but I'm kind of passionate about it, is that if you ever gone to BuzzFeed, I don't know if you know about BuzzFeed.com. They write about pop culture, business, etc. They don't write lengthy articles, for a lot of the content. In fact, they use a little paragraph, 3 or 4 sentences, and they may have a gift outside that kind of demonstrating what they were talking about, or just giving life and breathing life into their content. You can use those kind of strategies too. You don't have to do it the traditional way of having 500 words, this, that, and the other. You could be as creative as you want. You may not have any words at all. It could be a video, it could be an audio, but there's so many ways that you can create content on your website. The main thing I would say is be consistent and be genuine, and stick with the things that you really know and that you can really talk about intelligently.
Right. And it has to be something that you know about. And what are your feelings about writing about the job search process if you are a job seeker? Is that a post that's going to be
some people it might
beneficial?
For some people, it might be a trap. Because if you have a lousy job search, nobody's not going to want to read about your lousy job search. Now, if there are things that are interesting, if you're taking people on a journey with you, and let's say you might be trying a strategy that might be quite creative, that might be quite original, take people on that journey. And maybe it'll work for you. It can encourage a whole lot of folks. You'd be surprised on how that will work. Or you may decide to talk about something else that you're not pursuing, but you're passionate about. That has potential as well. So, don't take for granted at all that people may not look. People are going to look. Whether you get people to stay is part of the trick.
Right. Well, and the nice thing about, again, starting with LinkedIn and their blogging platform is that number one, it's free. Number one, you've got your built-in audience, because anybody that is in your network that you're connected with could potentially see it show up in their stream. But also, it gives you the opportunity to experiment with some of this stuff. So there are some benefits to trying that first before
I think there's strategies to update your profile, the strategies on using the updating process to do it even daily, even if it's 1 or 2 updates where you're updating articles that are relevant to you and the people in your network, or, even YouTube videos.
Well, I mean, is it just updating? Is it just liking it? Is liking it enough?
you got to be involved, and you get the most out of it the more involved you are. And don't be afraid to have a conversation. I think people they feel like they might be in a trap if they comment and somebody disagrees. And I think that might be a fear of all of us at first, but disagreeing could be very subjective. Mm-hmm. And actually, if you're right, you can really turn that around to be something that is productive and might be useful to people who are looking on. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the same thing as on Twitter. I think a lot of people don't understand on Twitter, when you like something, I can't send you any kind of an easy thank you for liking something. It's and just retweeting, again, I can't do anything with that information as the author or the originator of that post. I want to be able to thank you. I want to be able to have a dialogue with you for commenting or whatever.
Right.
I can't do that on Twitter. So again, taking the easy route, doing things that are easy is not necessarily the right approach. You want to be thoughtful. You want
you
your brand.
Add to a retweet. You could add a comment to a retweet now that before you could only stay within 160 character realm. Now you can add a very thoughtful one-line comment to it that adds value to what that person is saying or the article that they're tweeting up to the world. I mean, don't be afraid to look for opportunities where you can add your voice to the conversation.
Absolutely. I think part of it is time commitment too. It does take more time to be thoughtful, and it does take a little bit more time to think about what you want to write and write it correctly with good grammar and spelling and stuff. But then that just means you need to be selective in what you're doing. And not
there are solutions to some of the grammar issues that you could deal with. There's a couple of actually really good plugins that you can use. Grammarly is one of the best, in my opinion, the best spell checker, grammar checker in the whole world. In fact, I had them on the show last year. Probably it was in the 80s, and if anybody wants to know, you can ask me. But they have an extension. They have a Chrome extension where you can add it to your Chrome, and then whatever updates you make on your Facebook and your Twitter and some of the other social networks, you can put that in your Chrome, and it will help you check the grammar, at least the basic grammar, like with past tense and present tense and spelling and some of the other things. Uh, it's very effective, I think, to use it. There's another one called Ginger, and of course, if you want to just cut and paste comment just to see, you can go to polishmywriting.com. It's another little great way to check it real quick. You can also, if you want to get even more daring, Grammarly has an extension to go to your Word document. It may cost, I forgot whether there's a cost associated or not, but they have a free model now that anybody can use. And you can check your grammar there if you're concerned about how it looks and how it may come across. And it could be.
Okay, what was I got? Grammarly, Ginger.
Grammarly,
what was the middle
Ginger,
one?
and then there's a website called polishmywriting.com. And Polish My Writing probably last. Ginger is last effective. Ginger, I would put somewhere in the middle, and somebody will probably say that I like something better. But Grammarly is, to me, the granddaddy of grammar checkers, and certainly there are colleges that use it for dissertations and doctorate papers. So, if it's gone that far, I have to recommend it. Yeah. So you can use those. And even when you text, and you can look for Ginger, they have where if you want to text it, like let's say if you have your phone, you're on your mobile, and you want to, you can use that Ginger to help you with your texting while you're on your phone. So
really?
Yeah. So
that's always good to know.
Those are tools that can help you with the grammar aspect of it. But I know that's a real concern because some people say I've always written terribly. Well, the more you write, the better you get at it eventually, and that's really true.
Which is true.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing: when you're writing online, it is more of a living, breathing experience, right? It's in either real time. There are some exceptions where it doesn't need to have to be flawless. I think there's a certain amount of forgivingness that is out there in certain terms and certain venues. Your resume is not one of them.
If you look through my blog, I still see one or two per article where I could have said this instead of this, or I misspelled something. Fortunately, I've gotten away with it. Nobody's really
to us all.
But I think we all, it's a continual work in progress.
Yeah.
So,
hey, what I want to try to do, I usually do 30 to 45 minutes versus a whole hour, only because who's watching for a full hour? Anybody out there watching for a full hour? Anyway, is there anybody who'd like to jump in and ask a question? I'm certainly happy to open up a seat. I know Bob's been saying some nice things about intelligent comments and blah, blah, blah. So if anybody wants to jump in and ask a question or just type in a question, we're happy to field them, and it's a great opportunity to hear what Mark Dyson has to tell you.
It looks like we got a few people on. Unfortunately, I can't see everybody, but
they're at the top. So we've got got Bob, Mayu, and who's the other person who joined? There's a wonderful woman here. Is it Rhonda or is it Angelica? Brenda Goburn-Smith. Is Brenda still there? So anyway, there are a few people still here. If they've got any questions, we're happy to live chat or open up a seat for you.
While we're waiting for folks, and you can interrupt me at any point, that I think when we think of these social tools and the apps that we have, there's a ton of them. And really, it's hard to discern what's trendy and what's effective as far as using something for your brand and for you to reach out to people. And I think there's just some that are just solid that don't fail unless Well, I get
So
what I
solid.
mean in terms of
Who are some
social
of the
networks
solid?
and suggesting which ones to use and those kind of things. I think people really
Oh,
wonder
right,
what's going to
right.
be the best. I would say try one and see what works. Twitter doesn't fail me. Facebook hasn't failed me. LinkedIn hasn't failed me. If anything, try one of those three first to see what would work for you. And like I said, it could be
Yeah.
on your phone as you go. So really, it's okay to use it while you're waiting for something. It doesn't hurt at all. So,
Mhm.
it could be, go ahead and try it.
And sometimes we're afraid to make mistakes.
Right.
Sometimes we're afraid to make mistakes or we're not going to do it right. Get mentorship from somebody who's already using it and just watch them, have them show you how they use it.
Tutorials on the web. There's tons of them, YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't even discount the fact that YouTube is a huge search engine and a way to get noticed. A lot of people are afraid to do videos, and I think for the most part, again, it's the same idea with Periscope and Blab. Add personality to it, you set yourself apart, and it makes you, you can actually be an expert if you really want to be. I'm not saying go out and be that, but you do kind of have to position yourself in a way that is going to be impressive and that you're going to be a resourceful person for them. You could be that insider that people are looking for. Who knows?
So Jack Luke, what recommended platforms for personal branding websites? What would you recommend for personal branding websites?
Actually, my first choice would be a WordPress site, either with your name or something that you are passionate. Yes, WordPress shows real well in Google. You could do a lot of things with it, and buy a domain. Just don't use the markdyson.wordpress.com. Go after markanthonydyson.com.
Right.
And it's something that you own. You can make it even multi-channel and multimedia using audio, video, or writing, whatever's going to suit. And no telling, it may change between times that you may want to write more or you may want to do audio more.
Yeah. Even some of the web, as long as you're buying your own domain, they've made them very easy to.
Yeah, brandyourself.me, I think is one. About.me is a good one. Free. There are plenty of them that are great to use in that realm. The main thing is that you want to be found, and you want to be found with some social proof that you've done the job already, or that there are parts of what you do, you could do that next job or that next career. So that's the strategy and the view that you want to look at it. You want to look at it with a long-term purpose, not just get the job now.
And to buy a domain is under $10 a year, so it's nothing.
It's absolutely nothing. But how great is it is that, you can say, you don't have a business card, say, hey, just Google my name and you can find me. How great is it and how impressive it is, they find a lot of other work or a lot of other things that you've been active in, ways that you've been active in promoting your personal brand. Again, you want to think like a marketer, you want to think like a consultant, you want to have the soul, you want to plan on to disrupt expectations. And that's going to be the thing that really sets you out. And I keep saying it again and again, that's the truth.
So Bob's saying that you can get your own WordPress domain for about $18. It's still right. However you get that domain with your name, you're great. You can get it through WordPress. You can get it through a hosting, whatever.
Yeah. It's been a while since I had to actually purchase one right out. I pay a little bit more because I have like bells and whistles to mine. But and I'm not saying you need to add all those bells and whistles by no means. the more you invest.
And the other thing that Bob says, and I'm going to totally agree, Bob, I'm an introvert. I really have problems in groups, large groups, and talking a lot, I think, more than I talk. So I perform best, and I'm able to talk when I know the subject matter. And I think that social networks, whether it's Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, blogging, whatever it is, work better for me as a platform. These video ones are a little bit more difficult for me because I'm not going to invite a complete stranger. I'll talk to people I know, but I'm still talking about a forum that I'm comfortable with, and talking about a subject matter that I'm comfortable with. And so I think introverts, as long as they feel knowledgeable on a topic, would be great in any of these platforms, writing, blogging, video. But social media does give us a chance to be a voice on our terms, which I think is fun.
Right. And the other thing to think about too is if to expand it even further out, the idea that you can hone your craft using a blog, using even just some audio every now and then. That really helps you not only have talking points ready to go when it's time to interview, or when it's time to maybe even train or even speak, or if you want to get a little bit more daring, is to go out and train at libraries or something like that. Again, anything that's brand building, it's only going to make you more noticeable and make you more visible. And that's the name of the game. I mean, if the podcast really has helped me hone my craft, if anything else, and help me not just to have those conversations and relationships, but also I feel a whole lot more comfortable in talking about these different trends, because I talk about them time after time. When you write and you do a podcast, you do a video, you really do. People think that you know a little bit more than the average person.
Yeah. Everybody's their own company. I'm a company, me, I own me, and everything that's up here is me. And I take that with me. So screw the employer, because when they let go of me or I choose to leave, I take all that great stuff with. That's empowering. I just want people to feel empowered rather than victim.
Right. There's another job search trend we haven't talked about. Maybe we should, if we have some time, is to really talk about how remote work is beginning to change the game. Being able to have a flexible work and the resources that are there to have it or to obtain it. And a lot more companies are beginning to really relinquish the reins on people working from home. In fact, you look at space to rent in anywhere in part of your town, it's expensive. And the taxes on renting space is becoming even more expensive. So for a company to be able to have a certain set of workers to work from home, they don't have to pay that money. And they may not necessarily pay you that money. But the value for you, for those of us who have families and kids, to be home working, are you kidding me? Who wouldn't want to? So, there are a number of companies that are beginning to reach out to me as they want to come on the show and talk about their company. My number one pick, is always FlexJobs. And FlexJobs FlexJobs is probably the best choice that's out there, because one, they vet out any potential scam artists that is reaching out for people to come work for them, or said people. And so therefore you don't have to worry about whoever's on their site has been vetted very closely. They've been, so that you can reach out and you're ensured that they're a real employer looking for a real employee to work remotely, if not the whole job. So, and that's something you can actually go do on your mobile phone. And it's really an effective way to really think about all the possibilities. Most people are thinking, the big company and they have to go here and go there. No, you don't even have to think about leaving town these days to get something that even fits a little bit more for you. You can go to Flex Jobs. Flex Jobs, you pay a small fee monthly, or you can even, I think it's like $15 for a month, or you can pay a certain amount for 3 months, and then they have a plan for a year. And even at certain parts of the year, there's a little deal you can get to get for a whole year. So, it's at least, we don't say, Flex Jobs is not your normal job board in the sense of like the big job boards. They don't have thousands because they don't really vet like Flex Jobs does. And so, and they have great content on there as well. They've done a great job in building, I think, a powerhouse that I think is equal to the task of many of the big ones that we talk about. So that's a great option. And on top of that, LinkedIn also is a way to vet jobs to look for remote options. As you begin to have conversations with people, and people are actually, they'll brag about it.
Right.
I see it on my feed all the time. Oh, how nice it is to work in my pajamas, or that I can do this, that, and the other, and come back and work on this later. I mean, it just opens up a whole new world. So that's another way that people can, that's how I think the job search, because of that, has really shifted in that sense. Has really changed the way that, what the possibilities are. So,
absolutely,
it's all of the possibilities. Just don't think of the some that you're comfortable with.
Right. And I think step one is making people aware that these kinds of opportunities are legit, they're out there, and they're a real solution. And then the next is, okay, don't be afraid to investigate them, right? But Flex Jobs is great. And they're going to be having a huge conference in June in DC to help employers understand how to be more open to flexible workforce. And they're going to be talking with some of the companies that are successful in doing that. So it's a huge opportunity.
It is a huge opportunity. And again, look at all the possibilities. Just don't look at the ones that you're comfortable, that you're traditional, that just you and your friends talk about. See what's out there. And again, it might be a small little risk, but it's well worth it.
Great. Hey, Mark, we're getting to the end here. I want to say, first and foremost, thank you for sharing your expertise. It's always a pleasure. I wish you awesome, great luck, continued luck in helping people create this online branding strategy in a better, more thorough, futuristic, proactive job search strategy. We're going to plug you again. It's voiceofthejobseeker.com.
The voiceofjobseekers.com.
And you're on Twitter at Mark A. Dyson. So follow Mark on Twitter. He's on LinkedIn. You're on Facebook, both personally, and you've got a Voice of the Job Seeker.
Yeah, all of those, and they could, if anything, all the stuff that we mentioned is right there on the voiceofjobseekers.com. So they just go there to begin with if they want.
Great.
Thank you, Hannah. I look forward to seeing you on Facebook soon, huh?
Absolutely. And I'll share, I'll be sharing